We all know the NHL is full of superstars. Every team usually has at least one or two really great players. The household names, the ones who sell tickets, and the names you see on the back of most of the jerseys in the arenas. But this video isn't about those guys. This one is about the names who aren't mentioned as often. The guys who aren't thought of much by people outside of their team's fan bases, but provide a lot in helping their team win games. Hey, it's Matt from Puck Rivals, and Billy and I went through and chose one underrated player from each team that we feel needs more recognition for what they do. Whether this player is a consistent producer, overperforms based off their paycheck, or just deserves a little more love for what they do. We felt that it was important to point these guys out. So make sure to watch for which underrated player we chose on your favorite team. This was also an insanely hard thing to agree on, and with some teams we really struggled to decide between a few players. So let us know in the comments if you agree with us or think we missed out on someone. But with that, let's get into the video. Now first, on the Anaheim Ducks, we have Adam Henrique. He's a reliable two-way center and plays a smart and well-rounded game. He consistently puts up 40 plus points and has been a good 2-3 center spot for the majority of his career. And the fact that he's not a super flashy player and he plays that two-way style, he doesn't really get mentioned that much. But he's been consistently good for the Ducks all 3 years he's been there, and also with New Jersey before that. So he definitely deserves more recognition for the kind of player he is. Next up on the Arizona Coyotes, we have CONOR GARLAND. He's a very talented scoring forward and is only in his second season in the NHL right now. And after lighting up the QMJHL in his final 2 years, his scoring touches transferred over to the NHL, where this year he put up 22 goals in 68 games while only playing around 14 minutes a night. And not only that, he was the leading scorer on Arizona on a team that has Taylor Hall and Phil Kessel. He has a high motor and he's very good at creating offensive opportunities, and I can definitely see him continuing to succeed further when he's given the chance to get on the ice more. And now for the Boston Bruins, we have David Krejci. Krejci's been a reliable center for the Bruins for the past decade. He's a solid two-way player, but usually gets forgotten because he's in Bergeron's shadow. And over the years, he's consistently still put up good numbers, despite constantly changing line mates. And because a lot of the talk when the Bruins get brought up is about the Bergeron-Pastrnak-Marchand line, Krejci usually doesn't get the recognition he deserves for the consistent production he's put up for the team over the years. For the Buffalo Sabres, we have our underrated player pick as Rasmus Ristolainen. Ristolainen is a mobile and physical defenseman capable of getting under the opponent's skin every game. And he's been given a ton of criticism over the years for his play, but hear me out. He's a defenseman who's capable of scoring 40 plus points and has pretty much every year he's been in the league. And he's used to playing a lot of heavy minutes on a perennially bad defensive team, and he's still only 25. And that was in his really young developing years. So the fact that he was able to play an average of 24 minutes a night over his career, that's really something he hasn't been given full credit for, considering how bad the teams he's been on. Now for the Calgary Flames, we have Mikael Backlund. Backlund's a reliable second-line center and has been in Calgary for a while now, kind of like Krejci. He's a consistent 40 to 50 point producer and a good playmaker with two-way ability. Backlund has been a good player in Calgary for a long time now, and he doesn't really get thought of much because of the star power on the team of guys ahead of him like Monahan, Gaudreau, and Tkachuk. But because he's been so consistently good for so long, he definitely does deserve some more recognition. For the Carolina Hurricanes, we have Teuvo Teravainen. And he's definitely underrated for sure. He has great hands and playmaking ability, and he's been just under a point per game over the past 2 seasons. And since he's been in Carolina, only Sebastian Aho has more points than him, and he's only ahead by 18. But you don't really hear Teravainen being considered on the same level as Aho. Not saying that he is completely, but he definitely deserves to be in the conversation with how consistently he's produced, almost at the same rate as the best player on the team. Next on the Chicago Blackhawks, we have Connor Murphy. The defenseman really flies under the radar, and a lot of that has to do with him just not being a flashy player. He's a steady defensive defenseman and has really come into his own in Chicago over the past couple of years. This year especially, he's averaged just over 21 minutes of ice time and has shown he can take on more responsibility and can be a reliable defenseman for them going into the future. For the Colorado Avalanche, we have Samuel Girard, and he's a defenseman who's a great skater and has already shown he's a reliable top 4 defenseman at the age of 22. He has high-end passing ability and sometimes can be overshadowed by guys like Cale Makar and even Bowen Byram coming up in their system. But even being so young, Girard has shown his consistency and the ability to be counted on and is going to be a big part of the Avalanche blue line going into the future. Moving on to the Columbus Blue Jackets, we have Oliver Bjorkstrand. Even though he only played 49 games in an injury-riddled season, he still put up 21 goals. And that's why his first key point is his lethal shot. He's a phenomenal scorer and very effective at 5-on-5, where he is 6th in the league in 5-on-5 goals per 60 for players with a minimum 30 games played. And also pointing out, this is his first season averaging over 15 minutes per game. The more opportunities he gets given to play, the more opportunities he's likely going to score. So he's another player who probably won't be underrated for very much longer, as long as Torch decides to give him more ice time. Next from the Dallas Stars, we have Esa Lindell. Now Lindell has big size and he displays all-around ability in this game. He doesn't really have to use his offensive side much because they already have Heiskanen and Klingberg on their blue line, but he's shown over the years he has the ability to handle consistent 22-plus minute nights and is a reliable defenseman on that Dallas blue line. Now from Detroit, we chose scoring winger Tyler Bertuzzi. He's a player who's shown in his first few years in the league he can score 20-plus per season, even on a team like Detroit. And he's the kind of guy who gets in the dirty areas and an agitator that can get under the opponent's skin. He's a very creative, offensive-minded player, and only finished the season 5 points behind Larkin for the team lead. So he does have some very good skill that's probably underappreciated because of how bad of a team he was on. But that may change over the next few years if they can turn things around. Next from the Edmonton Oilers, we have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. And in Hopkins, you get a player who's a high-end second-line center and can also be a scoring winger. He's kind of been bogged down over his career because he was number 1 pick and on a very bad Edmonton team for the first part of his career. And since the emergence of McDavid and Draisaitl, he's kind of been flying under the radar and contributing without really getting much recognition. And over the past little while, he has been playing with great line mates because of the lack of depth on the Oilers team. So he definitely should be getting more praise for the kind of production he's been putting up. On the Florida Panthers, we decided to go with Aaron Ekblad. And this was a tough decision, but Ekblad does definitely deserve more praise, especially considering what he's gone through. Ekblad's finally returning back to his elite form after concussion struggles over the past few years. And he's been given his fair amount of criticism, even though he does a lot of the heavy lifting for his D pair. And the Panthers are a more dangerous team when he's on the ice out there. So this is more of a player who does have some high expectations, but has been underrated over the years since he's dealt with significant injuries. But through this comeback, he's showing he is able to meet those expectations. For the LA Kings, we have Alex Iafallo. Iafallo is a responsible winger who had a modest production of 43 points in 70 games this year, and he's shown an ability to score in a bigger role when he was given more minutes this year. And not to mention that Iafallo is one of the few bright spots on a weak Kings team from this year that didn't have much to show or a lot of depth. On the Minnesota Wild, we have Jared Spurgeon. Spurgeon has been a staple on that blue line for years now and has been a huge impact on 5-on-5 play for Minnesota. He's a defenseman with the ability to do it all, but doesn't really get the credit he deserves because he kind of plays in Suter's shadow. But in Spurgeon, you have a responsible and reliable defenseman and someone you can count on to play 22-plus minutes a night. And he has shown that over the years that he's capable of doing that and doing it really well. But definitely does deserve a lot more credit for what he does. Now for the Montreal Canadiens, you have Phillip Danault. Danault is a reliable two-way center who's really accepted his role and excelled in it, taking the responsibility of shutting down the other team's best players on a nightly basis. And on top of that, he's been doing all of this at a really cheap cap hit at just over $3 million per year. And the line he was on this year with Gallagher and Tatar had some of the best possession stats in the league. So as a responsible first-line center that he's been, Danault definitely hasn't been given the recognition that he deserves because he doesn't put up these massive point totals. But he definitely needs more credit than he's given. Now for the Nashville Predators, we chose Mattias Ekholm. And he's a big, mobile two-way defenseman. His great play was one of the reasons that the team felt comfortable dealing away PK Subban, that the blue line would still be intact. He does it on a steal of a contract at $3.75 million per year. And on a nightly basis, he carries a lot of the heavy lifting in the defensive zone for the Preds, and consistently for years has performed well for them. But he's been in the shadow of guys like Roman Josi, Ryan Ellis, and even Subban when he was there, so he doesn't really get the credit that he necessarily deserves because of how stacked their blue line is. Now for the New Jersey Devils, we have Kyle Palmieri. And Palmieri is a scoring winger with a really good shot, and he's been consistently putting up 25 to 30 goals on a yearly basis. And just to add on how impressive that is, he's been doing it on a very mediocre Devils team. Again, he had 1 year with Taylor Hall, but for the most part, he's been doing it with not a lot to work with. Now from the New York Islanders, we have Brock Nelson. And Nelson has been a defensively reliable top 6 center for the Islanders for his entire career. He's a consistent 20-plus goal scorer and very versatile. He's a guy that can play up and down their lineup in all different kinds of situations. And one thing Nelson definitely doesn't get his recognition for is for his offensive ability. In his best season yet, he had 26 goals and 54 points in 68 games. He's not an overly flashy player. He's not usually thought of, especially when you have a guy like Barzal or Tavares before him who are consistently making highlight reel plays. So for how good Nelson's been year over year for the Islanders, he definitely deserves more recognition. And now in the New York Rangers, we chose Pavel Buchnevich. And in Buchnevich, you have a winger that can play up and down in the lineup. And this year he put up a career high in points in a shortened season with 46 points in 68 games. And there's still potential for him to grow after his 3rd full season. And a lot of the improvement in his development had to do with a bit of a better team and also getting more responsibility and getting more ice time. Buchnevich is one of those guys in the middle of the lineup that contributes, that likely doesn't get noticed as much as he probably should be. On the Ottawa Senators, we have winger Connor Brown. And this year Brown put up a career high 43 points in 71 games. He's a smart, reliable winger, and he's able to win puck battles despite his size due to his resilient style of play. And this year he showed he can score when he's given more ice time, even though he was on a weak and inexperienced Ottawa team. This is definitely a guy who's underrated just based off of lack of opportunity, but the more opportunity he gets and the better the Ottawa team gets around him, he's definitely going to show his skill a little bit more. Now on the Philadelphia Flyers, we have scoring winger Travis Konechny. And this year he put up an impressive 61 points in 66 games. He's a guy that plays with intensity and has really good hands and release. This year he really showed with more opportunity what he can do by putting up some pretty good numbers on special teams and really developing into a very good top 6 forward for the Flyers. But for as good as he's been, he really hasn't been given the credibility that he probably should, because the Flyers have Giroux, the Flyers have Voracek, Couturier. He's kind of pushing himself into that mix, but he's not quite there yet in terms of status, but that's definitely not going to last for long. For Pittsburgh, we have defenseman Brian Dumoulin, and in an injury-shortened season, he put up 8 points in 28 games, but that's not why he's an underrated player. Dumoulin is a steady shutdown defenseman who's been a really good member of the Pittsburgh Blue Line for the past years. He's not flashy, but he can be counted on for 20 plus minutes a game, and he's been quietly leading the Pittsburgh Blue Line behind Chris Letang. And just like a lot of steady shutdown defensemen, he doesn't get the credit he deserves because the points aren't on the board. But he's definitely a guy that you want if you're looking for a defenseman that's going to create some stability. Now we have Kevin Labanc from the San Jose Sharks, and he's a winger who's shown scoring ability without playing big minutes. And there's a lot of potential despite this disappointing season for him and for the team as a whole. I think San Jose would want to write this one off altogether, but Labanc has been slowly emerging into a top 6 forward for the team. I think going into next year's value is definitely going to be seen more as he's given more opportunity to get more ice time and take a bigger role with the Sharks team. For the St. Louis Blues, we have Vince Dunn. And Dunn is a mobile offensive defenseman. He's a really great skater with a good shot. He can carry the puck and make really smart plays on the rush. But because he's on a team with such a stacked blue line, he doesn't really get the opportunity or even the recognition that he necessarily should. If you put him on a team with a weaker blue line, he'd definitely be out there at least 20 minutes a game. But because he's on such a good team, he doesn't really get an opportunity. And due to that, he's then an underrated player. And for the Tampa Bay Lightning, we have center Anthony Cirelli. And Cirelli have a very good defensive center with underrated offensive ability. He still has only 2 full seasons of experience under his belt, and on a very strong Lightning team. And because of that, similar to Dunn, he doesn't get the opportunity or the recognition because of the star power that's above him. This season he was given a little more playing time, averaging over 18 minutes per game, but he's the kind of guy who flies under the radar because of the team he's on, and is definitely way more of an impact player than he's given credit for. For the Toronto Maple Leafs, we have Zach Hyman. And Hyman's the kind of guy that can be relied upon in all areas. He's very great and effective at winning puck battles and distributing the puck to the star players on his line, but he also has a very underrated scoring ability, putting up 21 goals in 57 games this year. Hyman's the kind of sandpaper guy that coaches love, but is also able to hold his own and contribute offensively as well as defensively. He plays with the top guys, which could get him extra points here and there, but with the style of player that he is, he does an effective job with what he does. And he definitely does help make his lines better, even when it's not putting points on the board. For the Vancouver Canucks, we have Tanner Pearson. And this season he put up 45 points in 69 games. And he's a versatile winger and the kind of guy that can play up and down in the lineup. He had a bounce back year in Vancouver after an inconsistent season before. Other than that sort of blip, he's been a consistent point producer and someone who's a middle of the lineup kind of guy that doesn't get thought of very much, even though he definitely does help his team win games, even though he's not the big star. Now for the Vegas Golden Knights, we have defenseman Shea Theodore. And this is a tough one because he's thought of as a good defenseman, but he's really not thought of by the masses quite at the level that he really should be. This season he put up 46 points in 71 games played. He's a defenseman with elite offensive ability. He averaged 22 minutes per game in only his third full season, and his defensive reliability is something that's underrated in his game. Being the number one guy on any team isn't easy, and Theodore has been able to do it despite, especially coming into the team's inception, his just in general lack of experience in the NHL. Theodore is the weird underrated pick where he is underrated just because of where he's sort of thought of by the masses, even though he's already thought of as a good player. He's really starting to show, especially this year, that he is a bona fide number one defenseman. Now onto the Washington Capitals, where we have defenseman Dmitry Orlov. On Orlov, you have a reliable shutdown defenseman who has been a staple on the Capitals blue line for the better part of a decade. He plays a physical game and can handle 22 plus minutes a night consistently. He's another one of those responsible players who's not really thought of because he doesn't put up insane numbers and he doesn't make any crazy mistakes. So a guy like Orlov really flies under the radar and isn't always fully appreciated for the kind of impact he has. And he's definitely been a crucial part of that Capitals decor and should get more appreciation for that. For the Winnipeg Jets, we have defenseman Josh Morrissey. Now Morrissey is a defenseman with great skating ability and can contribute in all areas. Last summer, after all the changes that happened to the Jets D group, the 24-year-old Morrissey was responsible for carrying a significantly weaker Jets blue line this year and having even more responsibilities, which he showed he was able to handle. He's kind of guy who's not going to be underrated for much longer because now he was kind of pushed into the number one role in Winnipeg, but he's played a significant role that's something that he hasn't been given full credit for. And there you have it. 31 underrated players from 31 teams. Again, these were some really tough decisions, so let us know in the comments if you agree or if we missed out on anyone. There are tons of guys who do a lot for their teams on a nightly basis that go unnoticed, so it's those fan bases that know best. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you like hockey videos because that's what we do on this channel. See you guys next time.